Hello, everyone. It is still Wednesday, January 31st. This is still the Ways and Means Committee. We are picking up S18 as passed out of the Human Services Committee now for an initial walkthrough and a review of the fiscal note, and then we'll pick it up further testimony either later this week or next week, depending on schedules. Just want to let the committee know we are not going to go deep on the science of addiction here in this committee. We are going to look at the revenue loss and any other details sort of that are relevant to that. So with that, Jen, would love you to take us through the bill. Thank you.
Sure. Good morning, Jennifer Carby, Office of Legislative Counsel. So would you like me to put the bill up on the screen to walk through? All right.
Thank you.
I will do that. Okay. Should be able to see the bill now. This is S18. We're looking at the House Human Services recommendation, which is a strike all. And this is an act relating to banning flavored tobacco products and e-liquids. Starts out with a couple of findings around the costly nature of tobacco use and the expanded use of youth tobacco usage as a result of e-cigarettes. And then also a finding on menthol cigarette use by particularly marginalized communities. You'll see that come up later in the bill. So Section 2 amends 7 VSA Chapter 40, which is the chapter on tobacco products. The first several pages are definitions. Many of them look new, but they're actually being put into the chapter instead of having cross-references to the tobacco taxes chapter in Title 32. So some of them look new, but are not. Some of them are just reorganized and alphabetized. So new definitions that you'll want to be aware of in particular, we have characterizing flavor, which is the way we're talking about flavored e-cigarettes and other flavored tobacco products. So this is a taste or aroma other than the taste or aroma of tobacco, imparted either prior to or during consumption of a tobacco product or tobacco substitute or a component part or byproduct of one of those. It gives some examples that it includes tastes or aromas relating to any fruit, chocolate, vanilla, honey, maple, candy, cocoa, dessert, alcoholic beverage, mint, menthol, wintergreen, herb or spice, or other food or drink, or to any conceptual flavor that imparts a taste or aroma that is distinguishable from tobacco flavor but may not relate to any particular known flavor. So some of these examples are things like unicorn poop that are these kind of conceptual, but not something that somebody actually could tell you tastes like something they have identified. It also includes
I'm sorry, did you say unicorn poop?
I did. There's also unicorn puke, so you can choose your poison. But
thank you so much, Jennifer.
You're welcome. Little knowledge I can impart. So the term also includes induced sensations, such as those produced by synthetic cooling agents, regardless of whether the agent itself imparts any taste or aroma. So that characterizing flavor will show up in a few of the other definitions later on. Some of the rest of these definitions are just moved with a slight update to language to reflect some of the language changes in the bill. But for example, we now have a definition of cigarette in Title 7 in addition to in Title 32. It's the same definition as what's in Title 32. So e-liquid is a new definition here. This is a solution, substance, or other material used in or with a tobacco substitute that is heated or otherwise acted upon to produce an aerosol, vapor, or other emission to be inhaled or otherwise absorbed by the user, regardless of whether it contains nicotine. And then there you'll see in a few places we're kind of carving out, making a distinction between cannabis products and tobacco products, just to ensure that they're being regulated specifically within the chapters that otherwise regulate them. So you'll see the e-liquid terminology being added or clarified throughout a lot of the bill. Flavored e-liquid, and same with flavored tobacco product and flavored tobacco substitute. This is where that characterizing flavor terminology
second,
comes
Jen.
in. Yeah,
I just want that flavored e-liquid, that it doesn't have to contain nicotine,
it does not have to contain nicotine.
so that confuses me. Okay, I'll have to give that some thought. Thank you.
So flavored, the terms flavored e-liquid is any e-liquid with a characterizing flavor. Same for flavored tobacco product, any tobacco product with a characterizing flavor, and flavored tobacco substitute, any tobacco substitute with a characterizing flavor. They all say, with respect to the specific product, that an e-liquid tobacco product or tobacco substitute shall be presumed to be flavored if a licensee, manufacturer, or their agent or employee has made a statement or claim directed to consumers or the public, whether express or implied, that the product has a distinguishable taste or aroma other than that of tobacco. So again, more definitions just getting moved around. Some of the definitions were pulled out from individual sections within this chapter and moved to the beginning so that the definitions can be viewed in one place. We did add a definition of nicotine, which is from the federal definition used by the FDA. It's a chemical substance with a name I will not try to read to you, including any salt or complex of nicotine, whether naturally or synthetically derived. The rest of these, I believe, are all existing statute definitions, again, just moved over either from Title 32 or from elsewhere in this chapter. Beatties was moved to the beginning of the section. Tobacco paraphernalia is an existing definition. This picks up a few new aspects of it. So it's a device used, intended for use, or designed for use in smoking, inhaling, ingesting, or otherwise introducing tobacco products. And the bill would add tobacco substitutes, e-liquids, or a combination of these into the human body, or preparing tobacco for introduction into the human body. And it includes a list of items in existing law, and then the bill would add and clothing or accessories adapted for use with a tobacco product, a tobacco substitute, an e-liquid, or tobacco paraphernalia. So you'll see some of the changes in that this bill is making to existing law are reacting to or anticipating developments in the industry. Tobacco products is just moved. And then finally,
Yep. We have a series of
Can
questions.
you give examples of clothing adapted for using for tobacco products?
the way this was described, and you may want to consult with some of your colleagues in the Human Services Committee because it's where my knowledge comes from, but there may be hoodies or backpacks that with a drawstring designed to conceal a tobacco substitute, which is an e-cigarette.
Thank you.
Representative Anthony.
My understanding from educational folks trying to enforce the no vaping rule involves this type of clothing, but this language is focused only on tobacco-based disguising clothing, not more generally vaping paraphernalia. And I'm told that's a problem in schools independently of whether it's associated with nicotine. I just point that out.
Do you mean cannabis vaping?
Excuse me?
Do you mean cannabis vaping?
Of any kind.
So we'll get to the definition here in a moment of tobacco substitute, but tobacco substitute is what the statutes refer to as an e-cigarette or electronic cigarette. So you'll see in all cases, it's regardless of whether they do or do not contain nicotine that they're being regulated.
So in your view, Jen, that would be broad enough to include any vaping paraphernalia that uses clothing as a support accessory?
That is my understanding because it's about it's about introducing tobacco substitutes.
Okay,
And tobacco substitute is not restricted, and e-liquids, those are not restricted to whether they contain nicotine.
okay, thank you. That's great.
I do remember a conversation about taxation of, say, hookahs. And that tobacco substitute was quite a broad term in that context.
Great.
And we are about to look here at the definition of tobacco substitute. Oh, I'm sorry, was there more? Okay. We'll look at the definition of tobacco substitute as amended in the bill. So a tobacco substitute is any product that is not a tobacco product, which was this definition just above, which is cigarettes, little cigars, roll your own tobacco, snuff, cigars, new smokeless tobacco, any other product manufactured, derived from, or containing tobacco that is intended for human consumption by smoking, by chewing, or in any other manner. This is an existing definition, just moved. So a tobacco substitute is any product that is not a tobacco product, as defined there, and that meets one or both of the following descriptions. It is a product, including an electronic cigarette or other electronic or battery-powered device, or any component, part, or accessory thereof, that contains or is designed to deliver nicotine or other substances into the body through the inhalation or other absorption of aerosol, vapor, or other emission, and that has not been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration for tobacco cessation or other medical purposes, or it's an oral nicotine product or any other item that is designed to deliver nicotine into the body, including a product or item containing or delivering nicotine that has been extracted from a tobacco plant or leaf. So we're trying to get now at tobacco substitute is either an electronic cigarette type thing, or could also be an oral nicotine product like oral nicotine pouches that were being demonstrated or shown in the Human Services Committee.
Jen, do you know if anyone from the Cannabis Control Board took a look at these new definitions to make sure that they didn't interfere with any of their ongoing?
I don't believe so, because you'll see right here in B, cannabis products as defined in section 831. And there's a significant effort to carve out cannabis products to be dealt with in the cannabis statutes, and the tobacco products to be dealt with in the tobacco subject.
I'm thinking less of materials that contain cannabis and more objects that help deliver cannabis into people's bodies.
I think there are, I've consulted some with Michelle on this, but I'm happy to have her take another look. I did include some additional language somewhere in here that she had helped me with and that she'd run by the Cannabis Control Board.
Okay, thanks. I just want to, because I know we did a lot of sort of clarifying some definitions related to taxation of those objects at some point in the last couple of years, and so I just didn't want to counteract that work.
Yep. We can certainly consult and make sure we're not inadvertently creating confusion.
So for the substitutes, is that like the zine is like an example of the oral nicotine product?
Yes, Zins, is this what your ZYNS is? There's a container of those on the table in Human Services that was being used as prop. Yes, it's that kind of item.
And Jen, I'm realizing that you have a lot of pages left and we have 15
sure
minutes,
do.
so I'm going to stop asking you questions for now.
Okay. So vending machine, the definition was slightly broadened to include not only selling, but dispensing items, and broadening it to include tobacco substitutes, e-liquids, and tobacco paraphernalia. So then we get into other sections, some of which are just making conforming changes to add e-liquids throughout wherever we had tobacco products and tobacco substitutes and often tobacco paraphernalia. So you'll see that in many places, or substituting that term for existing language that was intended to get at the same concept. Here we're taking out a cross-reference to definition of licensed wholesale dealer from the tax statutes because we included that same definition in these tobacco statutes. Section 3 is the existing provision prohibiting the sale or provision of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and tobacco paraphernalia to anyone under 21 years of age. This adds e-liquids and also adds a prohibition on knowingly enabling the usage of these items by a person under 21 years of age. That's modeled on the alcohol statutes. And then we moved the penalty. So in existing law, the prohibition is in this section. The penalty is in section 1007. So we took the penalty out of 1007 and moved it here and made some changes to the penalty. So except as provided in subdivision B, a person, including a retail dealer who violates that prohibition, would be subject to a civil penalty not more than $500 for the first offense and not more than $2,000 for any subsequent offense. Under existing law, it's 100 and 500. So those are increased penalties. And in addition, an employee of a retail dealer who violates that provision is subject to a civil penalty of not more than $100 for a first offense and not more than $500 for any subsequent offense. It specifies that this is in addition to the penalty imposed on the retail dealer. And as an existing law, actions under this section would be brought in the same manner as for a traffic violation, so through the Judicial Bureau, and brought within 24 hours after the occurrence of the alleged violation. Here's that same conforming change here in the vending machine statute that we saw in the definition. And then including e-liquids in the restrictions on where items can be displayed or stored by retailers, and then exempting tobacco products and e-liquids from the requirement along with tobacco products if they're located in a commercial establishment that is not open to people under 21 years of age. They made some changes to the fines around BDs. So the sale and purchase of BDs under existing law is prohibited. There are separate penalties for a retailer who sells them versus an individual who purchases them from any source. So this would make it the same penalty of civil penalty of $250 for a first offense and not more than $500 for a subsequent offense. And then the definition of little cigars was moved to the definition section, but there is a new definition added for enable the usage of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or e-liquids. And that means creating a direct and immediate opportunity for a person to use them. Again, modeled on the alcoholic beverages statutes. Then we have some conforming changes around proof of age for the sale of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, adding e-liquids and tobacco paraphernalia. And then the definition of proper proof of age was moved to the first section. Section 1005 is the existing statute prohibiting the possession or purchase by persons under 21 years of age. So this is making some changes in the title to reflect changes in the contents. It would say that a person under 21 years of age, in addition to not possessing, purchasing, or attempting to purchase tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia, also could not do so with e-liquids. So that change, that e-liquid language is added throughout. And then some changes are made to the penalty statutes here as well. Instead of the existing provision that says a person who possesses these items in violation of subsection A must pay a civil penalty of $25. This would instead have them complete a tobacco cessation program approved by the Department of Health. And within 90 days following the date of confiscation, which is what happens to the items, the person must provide to the Division of Liquor Control a certificate or attestation that they have completed the tobacco cessation program. If they do not provide that within 90 days, then they would be subject to a civil penalty of up to $50. And it makes similar changes to the existing statute.
Sorry, 1 second, just a public service announcement. For whatever reason, fines are not our purview. Fees are our purview.
Right. Fines are actually imply a criminal element, although they're used interchangeably with civil contexts throughout the statute. So we're trying to use civil penalty. I will defer to the chair as to whether civil penalties.
Also is not.
Okay.
It's only
figured.
our purview if it's related to civil penalties of the tax code.
Okay.
Just a quick question, Jen. So if somebody pays the $50 fine for not attending tobacco cessation class, does that mean they don't have to attend tobacco cessation?
According to what this language says, yes. or if
Okay,
they don't
thank-
provide their attestation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so then under existing law, a person 21 years of age, under 21 years of age who misrepresents their age by providing a false ID to purchase these items is fined not more than $50 or must provide up to 10 hours of community service or both. Instead, this has been aligned with the language in the previous subsection, so they'd be subject to having the items immediately confiscated, which was sort of implied but never specifically said in the existing statute. Also having their fake ID immediately confiscated and completing a tobacco cessation program approved by the health department. And again, they have to attest within 90 days or be subject to a civil penalty of up to $50. And this would also be brought in the same manner as a traffic violation. Section 1006, it makes the conforming change to add e-liquids. Section 1007, as I mentioned earlier, the penalty provision for selling or furnishing these products to a minor was moved to section 1003. Excuse me. And then conforming changes added to, in this case, to update the name of the House Committee with jurisdiction over liquor, lottery and tobacco issues, and update the name of the Substance Misuse Prevention Oversight and Advisory Council. This is for purposes of who gets the compliance reports that the Department of Liquor and Lottery is required to put out. So, Section 1009 on contraband and seizure is largely some conforming changes. So not only cigarettes and other tobacco products, but under the bill, tobacco substitutes, e-liquids, and tobacco paraphernalia that have been sold, offered, or possessed in violation of various statutes prohibiting that. And this would expand those to include internet sales and the flavor ban you'll see coming up. All of those are deemed contraband and are subject to seizure by the Commissioner of Liquor and Lottery or the Commissioner of Taxes or their agents or law enforcement. And it would specify that all of those items are subject to being destroyed. Section 1010 is the existing ban on internet sales of all kinds of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, etc. So the definitions have been moved to section 1001 and have the full definition instead of just these cross references to the tax statutes. This is the conforming change to use the e-liquids language instead of the existing language. And I believe, and it also specifies that each shipment or transport of tobacco substitutes, e-liquids, or tobacco paraphernalia, in addition to these other prohibited items, constitutes a separate violation. Section 1012 is again conforming changes reflecting this e-liquids language, as well as other substances containing nicotine. So this is updating an existing statute on packaging requirements for liquid nicotine. Must be child resistant. Both any e-liquid containing it must be sold in child resistant packaging, and any container must be child resistant. And those definitions again were moved to the beginning of the chapter. Now we get to the flavor ban. So this is in section 1013. This is flavored tobacco substitutes, flavored e-liquids, and menthol tobacco products prohibited. It prohibits any person from engaging in the retail sale of any flavored tobacco substitute, any flavored e-liquid, and then specifically any menthol flavored tobacco product. I'll pause here for a moment for a couple of things. One is that under federal law, menthol is the only flavor of cigarettes that are allowed to be sold. So tobacco product is broader than just cigarettes, but when we're talking about only banning menthol flavored tobacco products, this would ban menthol flavored cigarettes, and there are no other flavored cigarettes. This would continue to allow, for example, mint or cherry flavored chewing tobacco.
Would the clove cigarettes be allowed?
No.
Okay.
I believe they may no longer be. I'd have to look into
It
this,
doesn't
but I
matter.
think they may
It really doesn't
no
matter.
longer be allowed.
Really
Okay.
I pretend I never asked.
Okay.
Thank
The other thing is that you can't see it yet because it's in the effective date section, but the ban on, and this will be important for you and for the fiscal note, the ban on selling flavored tobacco substitutes and flavored e-liquids would take effect on January 1st of 2025. The ban on menthol flavored tobacco products would take effect on July 1st, 2025. And there is later in the bill a report required or recommendation required from the Health Equity Advisory Commission regarding whether menthol flavored tobacco products should be banned. And that gives an opportunity for the legislature to make a change before that ban takes effect next year, if you or those in your seats so choose. So
And I think you said this, but can you just reiterate? So this is now focused on e-cigarettes, the new kind of substitute alternatives, but that like dip and other non-menthol flavored tobacco products are still available for sale to adults.
yeah, so menthol flavored tobacco products would continue to be for sale longer than and other flavors to the extent those are allowed under federal law or otherwise commercially available. So the other products in tobacco product, in addition to cigarettes, are little cigars, roll your own tobacco, snuff, cigars, new smokeless tobacco, which is like dip or chew, and other tobacco-y products. So those would continue to be, those other flavors of tobacco products would continue to be available to people 21 and older.
And we're strengthening the penalties for underage use.
Particularly strengthening the penalties for sale to underage, and then allowing a tobacco cessation program option for youth in possession or youth use.
I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
Okay, great.
All right, so then, question, or do you want to stop? I don't know what you want to do.
I got one, Jen, just to be clear. So any flavored tobacco substitute, that would include like the nicotine pouches, Zyn, those types of things, they get lumped into definition?
That's right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Jen, what are your thoughts on powering through 10 pages in 2 minutes, or should we have you back in?
We are close to the end of a lot. Well, it's really up to you. I mean, there's lots of reports coming up. There's lots of conforming changes and then some other stuff.
I think we're gonna need to just have you back. There's no time this week. Well, Jen, can you spend a minute with Sorsha when we're done finding a time that works?
Sure.
Thank you very much. And we will pick that back up on page 21 when we come back together, and hear the fiscal note when we come back together on that. Thank you, everyone. And we are back here at 1:15.